Well, tonight we take you inside a secretive Korean church that has recruited new Australian members in shopping centres and in university campuses. For the first time, former members of the church in Canberra describe being initiated into a group they say recruits women as spiritual brides for its leader, a man who's currently serving time for rape in South Korea. The group says they have nothing to hide and that it's just like any other religious group. They say their leader is not a messiah and that the church is not a cult. But some allege that once inside, members are given a much different picture. The Feed's Joel Tozer speaks to two young Australian women about their experiences inside Providence.
Working through all those painful emotions, at times I felt suicidal, at times I felt completely just like, roadkill, I guess, just, run over, used by someone else for their own purposes and then just cast aside.
I guess I was hiding my involvement with the group from people because I was afraid of their judgment, because I knew what it would look like to people outside the group.
It's important to realise what a modern day cult looks like. It looks like a dance event. It looks like a soccer match. It looks like a classroom. It looks like normal life. But behind the scenes it isn't. But you don't see that behind the scenes until it's too late or much later. If you look at all their events and all their propaganda and material through the lens of a serial rapist, it all makes sense.
I didn't think I was joining anything. They said that they were doing a Christian art show, and so they emailed me some pictures and it looked wonderful, it looked awesome, so I said I'd meet up with them and chat with them about maybe participating.
I just got such a good feeling from her. She seemed so friendly and really nice, and I didn't think anything bad could really happen from it. One of the girls suggested that maybe I could do Bible studies with them, and I remember her saying that it didn't necessarily have to be really religious.
Yeah, the first song we'll sing is A Sacrifice Like No Other. Yeah, it's truly because of Sonsingham's sacrifice that we can rise to levels that we could never have even imagined.
The main beliefs of the group are basically that Jung is the new Messiah, and that from the New Testament the level of history has been raised to something that they call the complete testament. They said that we're in the position of brides towards God, and we're also in the position of brides towards Jung, the leader, because he represents God.
It was difficult to think of him as a Messiah, especially seeing as he's just so far removed from my life. He's on another continent. He's like this 65-year-old man.
네가 손 대고 있네. 맞지 그라? 이 새끼 내 손 잡고 있잖아. 잘 찼어?
The leader was first introduced to me right at the end of my first year of Bible studies with them. I'd never seen him in person, so I didn't have anything in my own experience to go by to reassure me that he was a trustworthy person. I was just completely believing what other people had told me.
They told us that he was in prison because he was being persecuted and falsely accused. So some of the things that were given to me in the group included this double photo frame. So there's Jesus And then there's the leader of the group, Jung, and we prayed to images like this. The next item is a necklace that all the evergreens were given. So the people who were supposed to dedicate their lives to Jung only and not get married. And that was me. We were explained that the 3 pearls and just the way that they're placed is meant to signify a vagina. So.
Why do you think that was a symbol?
Because Jung is woman obsessed and he's sex obsessed, yeah. And I guess he wanted his women to be wearing symbolism that fit him.
We were encouraged to write letters to the leader. I would often write to him about how difficult things were for me at home, all the tension and conflict that was happening in my family. He might not have even ever seen one of my letters.
Sarah, Australia. Nice to meet you. I know that it's hard, but go to church. Don't let your parents know about it though. To Sarah. I read your letter and saw the photo of the beach. It made me feel warm. Treat the Lord like He is next to you. Sarah, are you well? The Holy Son has given the gospel to Australia and He has preached the gospel through me. In this room, I feel like I'm in your warm bosom and your embrace of love.
My head leader was telling me to write to him like he was my husband or like he was my lover, and he would write back in the same way. He asked me to send a photo of myself, to him, and we were encouraged to be in a bikini or, a lot of makeup on, really pretty. Some of the letters were quite intimate. So he'd say things like, women are much more beautiful when they're naked, and he said my white skin arouses him. He asked me to visit him in Korea, so I visited him in prison. So we got a 15-minute visit with him. He knew me by name from when I stepped in the room, so he'd obviously seen my photos. And he said to me through letters that he would stroke our photos on the wall of his cell. At the end, he just blew kisses and left.
These girls are kind of primed to think they're about to meet the Messiah, and this is the most wonderful opportunity. And that he's innocent, and it's so unfair that he's in jail. He was persecuted just like Jesus was. So we have this bizarre situation where a serial rapist is brought young, attractive women to him in jail. When I first heard about them in Australia, it was quite a shock because I encountered them on this mountain in the middle of South Korea. It was just so far removed from my experience growing up in Australia. They seemed like galaxies apart. I think this picture is quite indicative of the cult in general. Lots of beautiful women in the foreground. It's a concert event, very entertaining, lots of fun. For newcomers, they see a picture of Jesus and it feels like a safe church. I read a news report that said several years ago it was estimated there are about 140,000 members in Korea. But it is hard to get a grip on numbers because it is a very secretive group.
Sometimes we just teach Bible studies, but other times we do it in a more subtle way. So we go out and find models and teach a modelling group. The leader wants to target young, beautiful women because he wants to have as many beautiful women believing that they're in love with him and believing that they'd give every part of themselves to him. I don't really know, what he thinks will happen when he comes out of prison, but I know he'll have a very big following of beautiful women. If I was here today trying to recruit people, I'd probably be looking for a tall girl, most likely Caucasian, so often we were told not to recruit anybody with other ethnicities. I might say something like, "Oh, you're so tall. Have you been doing modelling before? Because you look like you could be on the catwalk." I'd be honest, but it was for a purpose. It wasn't just a compliment for no reason. The one time that I was questioned about being a religious group, I basically just had to flat out deny it because I didn't know what to do if I'd admitted that I was.
I was at times encouraged to go out and evangelise with other members of the group, but I didn't really feel comfortable doing this, and going out and meeting people wasn't exactly conducive to sort of hiding that aspect of my life away and keeping it to myself.
In the group, I didn't have that much to do with Sarah, mainly because she wasn't living with us. I only saw her occasionally, and what I was allowed to say to her was heavily monitored, and I was instructed on specific things to say to her when we met. We were encouraged to, have prayer times, pray in tears, have cold showers, fast. Any suffering to get closer to Him was considered noble. Lord, I just pray that You'll be with me and that You'll guide my spirit to meet the right people and find Your brides. In a cult, the end justifies the means. We believed that everything we were doing was right. We believed that we were trying to save people's lives and people's spirits, and some things that you're doing are justified because it's God's will. I did believe that I was doing the right thing when I was trying to evangelise girls.
We do not choose to answer this question. We do not agree to comply with this fishing for information. Members fund their own travel. Denied.
We're dealing with a group that is unethical, that is saying that it's okay to lie to your parents, it is okay to lie to those outside the truth, because our truth is higher. I think the biggest misconception that people would have about cults is that it's just some crazy people that get into them. It's incredibly confusing when a family member becomes involved in one of these groups.
I was a bit concerned because she was spending more and more time with the group.
I was told that Satan uses parents to get people out of the group. So, don't communicate with them as much as you can help it. There wasn't any option to leave because, the way that you're brainwashed to believe reality is that, everything will be horrific after you leave. And not only will you go to hell, but you'll have a horrible life on earth. I thought, even though it's hard now, nothing can be compared to the agony of leaving.
I just had no idea, no way of knowing at all what this group was going to do. No way.
I initially received emails from the parents of Elizabeth. That was about, 2 years ago now. They were very worried about her involvement. And for me, that's a scary situation because there's a lot at stake.
I just saw her becoming more and more unwell in that second 6 months in the house.
I had had an eating disorder previously and I'd recovered really well from that. But when I joined the group and as I got more involved, we were all so stressed because there was just such an incredible amount of not just daily pressure on us, but just the psychological pressure was intense.
We had to arrange for her to go to hospital, and that was a blessing in disguise.
When I came out of my time in hospital, I was kind of forced to stay with my mother for a couple of weeks, and she managed to fly in an exit counsellor from the US to come and speak to me.
And I know how I would be if I believed something is truth and someone wants to come and tell me, no, you don't have truth at all, it's a scam. You don't just go in and start to tell them that.
My sister came into my room in the morning while I was still in bed and told me that there were these people who were coming to talk to me, to give me some information about cult groups. And it was just the last thing I wanted to hear.
Roz met her first and talked about groups in general, which is kind of a non-threatening way to bring up the subject. And luckily, and to Sarah's credit, she sat there and took that in.
I couldn't really deny the things that they were saying. I couldn't really deny that there were bad things happening in this group. And it kind of got to a point where I realised, and I still remember like hearing this thought in my head, is that I don't want to be in Providence anymore.
It was incredibly painful to sort of realise that what I'd been sacrificing everything for the past almost 2 years was a lie. The only way that I could describe it was rape. Even though it wasn't physical, it was mental and it was emotional and it was spiritual rape. I felt violated.
There is a lot of recovering to do, and this is, you know, it can take months, it can take years for some people who've been in a long time.
I'd lost most of my friends. I didn't have anything. I wasn't in a degree. I wasn't going anywhere. And I felt like I'd wasted so much time in a lie.
I've just had so much freedom since I left the group. I've just been so much happier and so much more relaxed. Being able to, you know, go see a movie with friends, being able to go out and have a drink and not have to make excuses about why I can't has just been really amazing.
I really think about a lot of the members. It's just so sad that their lives are taken away from them, not just what they're doing, but just their free will. They all had individual hopes and dreams, but they've had to all give every single one of them up just to participate in this cult and this lie.
Now, the feed contacted Providence more than 3 weeks before airing this program. Numerous requests to interview a spokesperson in Australia and South Korea were refused. A full list of written responses to our questions from Providence can be found on our website. Specific allegations put to the group were denied. The feed would like to thank Liz and Sarah for having the courage to share their stories.